Good morning. You're watching Much Ado About Something. Welcome. Today, Donald and I are pretty excited because we are going to plant the vegetable garden. We're in the backyard today and it's planting day. And there's few things that excite me more than planting day. I know it's always fun to pick out your seeds and get your seeds started to plan at what you're going to plant. But on planting day, it's like the curtain is open. Is opening on show day so that you can put your seedlings that you've grown into the ground. And Donald and I are excited to do that today. It's the first week in June, so it's later. I don't think we've ever put a garden in as late as this year. But there's a few factors that is the reason that we're putting it in later. We've had a lot of rain. There was a lot of really cold days that came in there, unusually cold weather for us. And this year we're starting a different kind of garden. We're doing a no-till, no-dig garden, and we've never done that before. We've always tilled our gardens and dug them up. But this year we had to start a no-dig, no-till garden, and that took us more time. Let me show you that garden. Now, I've shared this garden with you before, but this garden took a lot of work. Donald put a lot of physical work in it. I helped him, but he done the majority of this. He marked out the layout of this garden with a marking paint. And we were wanted to use cardboard, but we didn't have enough cardboard to do this little garden this size, so we got weed cloth. So after he marked out the garden, he took a shovel and removed some of the clover and some of the grass that was growing. He shoveled that off and got that up, and then he put down weed cloth. And then the next step was we laid down some of our 4-year-old composted wood mulch. And on top of that, we put our regular garden compost and mixed with soil. We wanted to use all compost, but we didn't have enough for a garden this size either. So this is where we're at right now. We've got about 4 to 5 inches of composted material and soil mix, and it's the day for planting. Now here are all the bedding plants that I've had going on, and Donald and I have worked really hard to keep these things alive. I've watered them, and some of them are looking pretty good, and some of them have got to be in the ground as soon as possible. So today's the day that we're going to be able to do that. Let's get all this stuff in the ground. Not everything come up, because if you'll remember, I had a bird that was pecking on my seedlings and eating a lot of my seedlings. So out of the bitter melon that I got from Baker's Creek, I've got 2 of those started. So I'll be able to get that in the ground and see what that's like this year. I've got some tomatoes, some cucumbers and some squash and some marigolds. And so I'm going to go ahead and figure out where it is I'm going to put these things, put these plants. I'm going to go ahead and space it out. You can't really see right now, but the way the sun comes over and is on the garden, it'll determine where I place some of these plants. I know the cucumbers can take some partial shade, and some of the squashes, and the tomatoes I try to get them as much sun as possible. But that's what we'll be doing today. I've got some of the tools and things drug out that I'll be using. Just some seeds I'm going to add in different places. I got my good trowel that I like, good sturdy trowel. I painted it with a little bit of fluorescent spray paint because that helps me find it in the garden. It doesn't blend in as good. And then I got scissors because I may need to cut it under that under that weed cloth if I have to go down that far for some of the things like the tomatoes. It's going to be kind of a dirty day today. Be a lot of digging and playing in the dirt. Now the kind of tomato that I'm growing today are indeterminate. That's the kind of tomatoes I like to grow. Of course, I have more tomatoes here than I have space for. Only one of the mortgage lifters made it, and only one of the classic beefsteak, well maybe 3, I see there's just one sale made it, and then here's another classic beefsteak. So I just have a few of these. I have quite a bit of the beefsteak tomato in this little tray, and quite a few of the Brandywine black tomatoes. I'm looking forward to those. I think those are heirlooms. Brandywines are heirlooms. My goal is to space these tomatoes about 1.5 feet apart. And I'm going to do it up here on this top. There's a lot of sun here in this part of the garden. By now, I've usually pricked these plants apart and put them in bigger pots if I wasn't able to plant them. But this year's been an unusual year. I hadn't been able to get to those and to do that. So I'm just going to empty these out and see how many plants I actually have here. And of course, I know I won't be able to use all of these. But I'll pick through and find the best ones. No. These are all the Brandywine True Black tomato. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick the best that I think I'll use of these. And go ahead and plant them. Now I brought the scissors because usually how we plant our tomatoes is we pick off the bottom leaves and we plant them all the way up to the top so that all of this can make roots. So since this compost and everything that we've put on here is only about 5 inches deep, this is more than 5 inches, so I'm going to have to cut a little hole in this, and I will be planting this deeper. I know you're just supposed to plant in the compost, but my garden is not quite there yet. So we're just going to use it, we're starting it out, so we're just going to do it the best way we can to begin with. So I'm just going to clip a little X in this. And go down a little ways. Even though this is no dig, I've got to get this down in here. I've got to get enough root in here for it to take a hold. Now we've kind of got it spaced out where we want it, some things. We've got the tomatoes. We've got them at least 1.5 feet, or maybe some of them are 2 feet apart here. We've got them planted nearly up to their crown. And what I'm going to do with the tomatoes is I'm going to interplant. I have a little flat of marigolds. So I'll put a marigold or two near each tomato. And then the nasturtiums, I like to interplant nasturtium seeds in between the tomatoes. These I've scratched with a file and sandpaper, so hopefully they'll come up sooner than later. But I'll put some nasturtiums and some marigolds. These are large marigolds. I usually plant the little small orange ones, but I saved seeds from these last year and I wanted to use them, so I'm going to plant the large marigolds around the tomato plants, interplant, so that I can reap the pest benefits from that marigold. And then I love the nasturtiums. I harvest those every year. We're going to put the cucumber patch over here where it's cooler. This area will get a little bit more shade and be a little cooler, and we think the cucumbers can tolerate that partial shade. So we'll be putting the cucumbers in a little patch right here. Then we'll work the squashes and the zucchinis along this edge. Well, Donald got the elderberries planted along the chicken coop. So he got those planted. The chickens are already sticking their heads out and getting them a bite of elderberry leaves. So that's one major thing accomplished today. And here's the other thing. We were able to get this thing planted. Donald done the majority of it. We had company that came and visited, so we had to take a little break. But he's been at it for most of the day. We got the tomatoes planted and got them spaced out like we wanted to, but around the outer edge. I incorporated some marigolds in there around the tomatoes. We got the cucumber patches going and the zucchini. There's a few things that we didn't have room for and a few things he wanted to work in a little bit later, but for the most part, we got most of it done. And we're excited about that. So we got that garden in the ground. Better late than never. So now we can just see what we can get to grow and come up out here. He's working a little bit on the apple tree. He's going to stake it up a little bit. It's leaning. That's the first year planted apple tree, so we shouldn't have to worry about it getting too big or shading anything this year. But maybe in the next few years, that tree might get big enough to cause a little shade. But we are excited with the vegetable garden being in the ground, and now we can start watering and taking care of our plants and looking forward to the vegetables that we're going to get out of this. We've got tomatoes, 4 different varieties, Beefmaster, Mortgage Lifter, Brandywine, black tomatoes, and then some mystery tomato that I just saved some seeds from, and we're going to see what that turns out to be. We've got bush cucumbers and vining cucumbers. We've got zucchini and some yellow squash. I threw a few marigolds in there. I am going to plant some nasturtiums in there in the morning, some nasturtium seeds. And so we got that thing going. I'm so excited about it, and I can't wait to see what comes out of it, to make some pickles and tomato sandwiches and share some recipes with you. Thank you for joining me today, and like always, until next time.